You're listening to the Myerson Line. Life cycles, bicycles, fast lines, and hot takes.
All right, hello and welcome to episode 13 of the Myerson Line. I am so pumped to be finally doing another episode. It actually hasn't been a full 6 months or a year since the last one. And on this episode, I'm here with Colin Reuter, and I'm super pumped about it. Colin, welcome to the show.
What's going on, Adam? Congrats on pronouncing my last name right.
Well, interestingly enough, I thought it was something that we should talk about. Because I had a couple people mention that they want to know how to pronounce your name, and then it filled me with doubt because I was like, wait, it's Reuter, what else? But I realized people call you Reuter, but that's because they don't speak German, I guess.
Typically, they know it's not Reuter, and they don't know what to do, so they say Router, which is even worse.
Oh, yeah. And because then that's like an internet joke, too.
Right,
I lived in Switzerland and Germany. I took German. I know how to say Reuter.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, oi. EU is oi. Anyway, yeah. So, Colin is, what are you? You're a bike racer, race organizer, creator of Road Results and CrossResults.com.
I mean, yeah, Cross Results is the real claim to fame.
I gotta say,
like if there's only one thing, it's that.
Can you do something about the hyphen in RoadResults.com?
No, dude, you know how much the Road Results domain without the hyphen costs?
It's just such a bummer. The inconsistency there kills my
it killed me too, yeah. But I wasn't about to pay 5 figures for it when I started, and now that I actually have a brand at the dash, now they would want even more. So
I guess it makes sense, yeah.
Internet's stupid.
There could be a lot of other applications for a website called Road Results.
Exactly. Cross Results, pretty niche. I was able to get that.
Yeah. And of course, you're a programmer and an all-around helpful guy at Bike Reg. So there's lots to talk about there. I think well, in addition, you're actually a good friend of mine, believe it or not.
Allegedly.
Yeah. I mean,
for the most part. Not always on Twitter, but it's okay.
Well, yeah, I think so. As is often the case, sometimes people think when I'm fighting with my friends on Twitter, we're actually fighting. And it's not that we don't sometimes get annoyed with each other, but our friendship
you definitely have pissed me off for real before, but
our friendship is genuine, and so there's room for those kinds of disagreements, and then we come back and everything's fine, right?
Of course.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
We could start in so many places, but I think let's start with how we got to be friends, our first memories of each other, and then sort of how we got to that point, like what got you into the sport? How did our paths come to cross? And I mean literally, how did our paths cross? Not how did our paths lead us to cyclocross? So let's. That's a
good pun.
It was totally unintended, but it's a gift. It's a gift I have. Why don't I start? My earliest memory of you, honestly, is when I was racing full time and coming back to town. So I moved to Boston in 2003, and at some point between 2003 and 2005, you were in Somerville at that point, yeah, or Arlington.
I love it because I think you're already wrong. I think I moved to Somerville in 2006.
I was already in Dorchester at that point, huh?
Yep.
And what I remember is you being one of this group of Boston bike racers that I didn't really know, but you were my local community and local scene, but I was so detached from it because I wasn't racing locally and I was traveling so much that I just didn't have any roots in Boston. I left everything behind in Northampton. And so I just didn't, I had acquaintances, but not friends. And you were in that group of acquaintances. And I feel like we got to be friends after you borrowed my bike bag.
Did I borrow your bike bag?
Maybe your ex-girlfriend borrowed my bike bag, but I dropped a bike bag off at your apartment with your ex-girlfriend.
Oh man, then it got real. We finally had a relationship
We did,
based
yeah,
on
yeah,
based on exchange of goods.
yeah. That's how we got to be friends. And then there were like skin suit parties, and that shit is weird. And then I was like, maybe I don't want to be friends with these people because the
Well,
skin suit party thing is weird.
it's important. It's very important to take yourself seriously and not like get drunk and wear a skin suit, which makes no sense at all. Why would someone do that, Adam? It doesn't make any sense.
I was trying really hard to like integrate with my like cycling quote unquote friends because I didn't want to think of myself as this like detached pro. Like I was like, hey, these are my bike friends. These are my Boston bike friends. And then I was like, I'm in a skin suit at a party.
Yeah, you were forced to come face to face with the fact that bike kids are kind of weird.
It was terrible. Honestly, it was terrible.
It's okay.
But
the fact that you were traumatized that makes it that much better to me.
You were in the beginning, unbeknownst to you, of a bad breakup right around then too, and of course everything has gone well since. But that was also what was going down at that time.
I do love how your origin story has managed to like reference my ex-girlfriend and my breakup like 3 times in 1 minute.
That's where we got to be friends.
That is effectively who I am.
The good thing from that breakup is you ended up with me, and
that's always been my takeaway.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was worth the heartbreak and the drinking just to meet Adam Myerson.
So what about from your side?
I want to tell my Adam Myerson origin story. So, you're a professional cyclist or whatever, and I'm like a Cat 4 because I had just found out about cyclocross. And I think I went to Gloucester one time, maybe 2007, 2008, and I feel like you beat Josh Dillon in a sprint, and then you wrote about it on the internet. And I remember reading that and being like, this guy's a douche.
I vaguely remember this.
You remember that?
Yeah.
It was, I remember like,
because we were button heads. We were button heads in the race, and I was blogging a lot about my racing.
Yeah, you wrote about it. You basically were like, I sat on this dude's wheel, and I roasted him a sprint, and he was mad about it. But like, that's the game. Suck it.
Yep, that's right. I remember that.
And at the time, I was like, this guy's kind of a dick. So that was really the first time I ever experienced Adam Myerson's personality. But I think in retrospect, I appreciate it more now.
You've written so many similar blog entries since then.
Well, no, because I don't win in my blogs. That's the thing. My blog entries are usually like, I did something dumb and this guy beat me, or this guy is just stronger, so he beat me. There's very few stories where I like win.
The important part of that really is of that story and talking about Josh is really it's a coaching article, and I might be like sassy while I'm writing.
You're teaching blog posts.
That's
so
right.
It comes off a little pretentious. I forgive you. It's okay.
Yeah. Because I'm trying to be matter of fact about it. My attitude is like, you may not. It may not make sense to you, but here's what was actually going down, kind of thing. And yeah, of course, it can make me sound like a dick. And
if I was to write about all the times I have sat on someone's wheel and refused to get dropped and refused to pull and then beat them in a sprint, it would sound the exact same way.
The best
I don't coach, so I don't tell anyone that like that's the plan.
And sure. I like being helpful. that's basically what it boils down to.
I'm also terrified of someone else doing that to me, so I don't want to encourage you.
Give your secrets away. The best sitting on and sprinting story I have from Gloucester is actually when I beat Tim for 5th place.
Tim Johnson.
At Gloucester. It's my best result at Gloucester. Well, basically, I was riding pretty good. I was in the second group, but Tim was obviously in the front group. And it was when Gloucester was Gloucester, like all the best riders are there. And I make the second group, and I'm surprisingly like one of the stronger guys in the second group. And Tim flats or rolls a tire in the front group. And so he hobbles to the pit, changes bikes, and then comes through our group. And normally when someone like that comes through the second group, the group detonates and I go out the back of it. Whatever was going on with me this day, when Tim came through the group, I was able to get on his wheel and the group detonated, but I stayed with Tim. So I spent the next, 45 minutes just basically like trying not to get dropped. Like there was enough drafting and I was sprinting out of the turns well and driving well. And Tim was just trying to get back up to the front.
Right. He doesn't care about you.
No, not at all. Or at least not for most of the race. And then I figured I would just hang on for as long as I could. And then I wasn't expecting to race Tim for 5th. I didn't think that I really honestly deserved 5th. And my plan was to either just sit up or roll across. Like I wasn't planning on sprinting. I was happy that he kept pulling and didn't fuss with me. And if what I got out of that was 6th place, I was going to be psyched. What happened was, I think we didn't talk. Tim and I didn't talk. He was busy racing. I don't know if Tim and I have ever talked about this, actually. So it'd be interesting to hear what he has to say when he hears my version of the story. But
yeah, he's going to be super. He listens to the podcast.
Of course,
so
he does.
He'll probably call you.
He started attacking me. He started getting nervous that I was gonna sprint him, and started attacking me out of turns and stuff, like trying to drop me. And then I got mad because I was like, why are you worried about me? Race your race. Why did you turn your attention to me at all? And then I was mad that he was trying to drop me. And it's like someone punching you in the nose, and all of a sudden you're in a fight. I responded by trying not to get dropped because he was trying to drop me. And then I was like, okay, well, if you're trying to drop me, I'm sprinting. And we got the last corner, and I lit him up in the sprint, and I got 5th. And we pretended to be okay with it after, and maybe we were.
Yeah, I mean,
Stu was.
I think when you're Tim Johnson, it's a little annoying to get beat by Adam Myerson.
Yeah, I'm sure. I don't, especially since it was only a few years earlier that it was collegiate nationals that I beat him to, and he's still mad about that. No, he's not. I don't think he is. We like to pretend. Stu was mad at me because Tim was trying to get points to go to Worlds, and Stu was like, more or less like, who do you think you are, taking points away from Tim? And that wasn't really great. Stu and I got into a little fight about that, but Tim and I were fine about it. And so it's a good, funny story. And of course, in the wash, didn't count for anything. Anyway, sorry for that side story, but it's a good one, probably worth telling, because really, I want to talk about you. We're not here to talk about me necessarily.
Well, here, we can talk about you, because the other part of my Adam Myerson origin story is, I feel like there used to be not a Google group or like a Yahoo group. There was some list that New England bike racers talked about, and I feel like at some point I started contributing to it, and there was definitely discussion about like the Verge series and what to do, because I feel like we were maybe coming out of the dark ages where the 15 to 18-year-old boys were still racing with B women, which is insane that was ever a thing, but it really was.
Yeah.
And somewhere along the line, people were talking about the future and what to do. And I feel like I made a way too long email with constructive solutions that somehow like got me noticed by Adam Myerson. Because then I feel like you emailed me and were like, hey, what do you think about this? And then like, that was the first time I'd ever gotten an email from Adam Myerson, so it was very exciting. The excitement has since worn off, but
it turns into work.
I really felt like I'd made it at that point because someone that like ran a series was paying attention to me.
Well, this is genuinely part of why we're friends, and part of why I do, like we were talking earlier, part of why I respect you as much as I do, and part of why you're one of the few people that I reach out to for feedback and for real opinions, and I do this because, as I was mentioning to you earlier before the show, you're a very, very logical, rational person who's very good at problem solving, very good at evaluating data, and not just in a spreadsheet, also like anecdotally, just looking out at the world and seeing all the pieces and evaluating all the pieces in your head and processing them and coming out with what I often think is the right take. And so, of course, the fact that I agree with your conclusions is part of what endears you to me, right?
Yeah, right.
But even when we don't agree on something, you always can support your position. You're not pulling things out of your ass. You always have a really good reason for drawing the conclusions that you reach. And so, even if I reach a different conclusion, I unless it's because we were having a miscommunication, I almost which that happens too. But
maybe about like dressing for winter,
for instance. I just you walk the walk. You back your shit up. You make good cases for your positions, and yet you turn out to be really progressive, and not just liberal but progressive, in a way that that I think is not. It's not common. For those things to go together, let's say, and I always appreciate it. I think it's part of what makes you, different, or it's why you stand out for me, and part of why I've sought out not just your assistance but also your friendship. You know what I mean?
I don't even know what to say to that much flattery. I'll take it.
I'm flirting with you.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, how did you get?
You're awesome too, buddy.
Thanks, dude. Tell me how you got to that point where I think your background is in other sports like Nordic skiing. How did you get to cycling, and how did you get to cyclocross? And how did you get to Boston?
Yeah, right. So I grew up in Maine. And my parents were very active people. They're still very active people. So we skied in the winter, cross-country skied. I started cross-country ski racing when I was 5. When you're 5, you don't have any agency, you know? So like they basically chose that I would ski race.
Tell that to Flynn.
Hey, you tell that to Flynn, man.
I'm trying.
He thinks he's in charge. I don't know. Maybe I wasn't good at rebelling as a kid, but they were like, this is the thing we do. Yeah. They were like, here's the number. You and the other kids are going to ski, and we're going to see who wins. And I was like, oh, this is fun. Kind of. It was more fun before my little brother got fast. Once he got fast, it was a little frustrating because he was better than me. But it's neither here nor there. And then the 90s happened, and my dad got a mountain bike because it was the 90s. Everyone found out about mountain biking. He took me to some mountain bike races, and I got to race junior beginner in the 90s, which, you know, as a road pro, you probably didn't know this was like a really big thing. But there would be like 30 kids in a junior beginner race. And I would get my ass kicked, which was interesting because I didn't train. I rode like twice a month, you know, at a bike race with my dad. And once again, I was 14. I had no choice in the matter, really. So that's like, you know, so biking was a thing, but I was mainly a ski racer. Went to college, ski race there.
Where'd you go?
I went to Cornell.
Yeah.
It's a club team, thank God. I'm not actually good enough to like make a varsity ski team, but we basically like drank and skied. It was fun. After college, I wanted to make video games for a living. I got a job with Electronic Arts, and they put me in Orlando because that's where the video games are made. So I moved to Florida, and up until that moment in my life, I thought where I lived didn't matter. And I thought that like doing sports didn't matter. And like these were things I just did because like whatever. And what I really wanted to do was make video games. So moving to Florida to make video games was like hitting it big.
Yeah.
I was really wrong about that. So I basically worked like 60, 70-hour weeks for a year in Florida making games, stopped exercising completely, got miserable and depressed. My girlfriend broke up with me. It sucked. And that was like the come to Jesus moment where I found out like what really matters in life, which is free time and hobbies you like. So I moved out. I had to get a job. So I moved out of Florida back to the Northeast. It turns out that climate is also important. So I got a job in Boston because that's where the jobs in New England are. And then I was like, wait, I have a job with weekends off, which was totally fresh. I had done like a year of working Saturdays and most Sundays. So I was like, what do you do on the weekends in the fall? And I was like, I don't know. I can't ski because it's not winter. I used to race bikes in high school. I still own a bike. I'll try racing bikes. So I raced like a couple mountain bike races, and people were like, are you going to race cyclocross? And I was like, what is cyclocross? And I bought a bike on eBay that turned out to be from Dan Valancourt.
Oh, funny.
And yeah, right. I had no idea who that was. It was a good deal. It was a sweet bike. And I was totally scared of cyclocross. So I went up to Down East in October to watch the first day to like see what it was about. I was like, I don't want to enter this without seeing it. But I watched the first day at Down East, and I was like, I think I could do this. This looks okay. So
that's not the reaction that most other people would have observing their first Down East. I was worried you're going to be like, and I watched Down East, and I was like, oh,
no,
I
think I went the only year the weather was good.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it was the year after, like one of the worst muddy years.
Yeah.
So, and like I had raced mountain bikes, I had ski raced, so like I wasn't unfamiliar with like aerobic activity. So I signed up and raced C's. That I got like, I don't know, 10th out of 40 or whatever. But I was like, that was awesome. That was way more fun than ski racing, honestly. So the rest is history. Here we are 10 years later.
Yeah.
Now I'm like very solidly mediocre. Haven't gotten faster in like 7 years, but I still think it's fun. So
I think that's one of the things that I also enjoy about, let's say, spectating your racing. Like if I'm a fan of your bike racing,
All those times where you're watching the scrub zone, watching us throw down for 37th place.
Okay, honestly, I don't get to watch that very often. But
right, I thought maybe like if you flatted or something.
I've always appreciated your approach to it, and it's hard to get people. There's probably no way to compliment you on this without it sounding backhanded, right? But I really am being sincere. Like, most people aren't going to get to the front of a UCI bike race.
Really hard.
It's it's very few people who will actually get to that level, right? But there's still a lot of satisfaction and fun to be had, whatever level it is that you get to. And I think getting to, for instance, the level where you can finish on the lead lap of a UCI elite race is really significant. It's an accomplishment in and of itself. Like, similarly, when I went to Europe and was able to finish on the lead lap of a race in Europe, I've said this before, but I realized I would never get to the front of those races, but I'd gotten close enough to measure the distance, that feeling of like, oh, I can see that. I am in this part of this bell curve where I'm within 10% of the best guys in the world, and maybe I won't get any better than this, but it's amazing to be up here and to be able to see that, and that was very satisfying. I think you can experience that at your local UCI race or in your Cat 4 Masters field.
I mean, there's like in cross, the threshold is just, do I belong in this race? And then as long as you belong in the race, there's going to be guys to race with, and you're going to race hard against them, and you're going to have fun. Like, I've done some UCI races outside New England where there basically was no scrub zone because it was an area where the Cat 2s don't own UCI licenses, so like they don't race.
Right.
And that's legitimately not fun, where you're 29th out of 31 and there's like 4 guys off the back riding alone. And like if you were watching the race, you'd say, I don't know why those guys are in the race. They don't really belong in it. So that's no fun. But again, in New England, I'm racing for 45th, but there's 65 guys in the race, and like we all know each other and we race hard. We're on the same team until we don't get pulled, and then we try to beat each other.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And it's great.
Yeah. And you've basically reported on that. You've written race reports. You've described it in a way that I think makes it sound fulfilling and fun and satisfying, and shows the real value. It's my fault that the Cat 2s in New England have to race in the UCI race, right? I created that situation, and it's really worked.
Yeah, but I told you, I believe we emailed about it, and I told you it was okay. So it's also my fault.
You were my Cat 2 spokesperson.
You checked with the one Cat 2, and I was like, it's fine.
Yeah. No,
that's back when I thought I could be good at this, though. So I was like, that won't be me getting pulled.
Well, I think the thing is, you actually are, and you know this, you're actually capable of more than the level that you're currently and even previously have performed at, but you have other priorities, and that's also one of the things.
An interesting concept.
Well, listen, you have a job, right, and your job is...
Yeah, I mean, I could quit my job and train way harder and move up to 25th, but...
Yeah. So I think what you've achieved while having a life, it looks great. It's like the point. That's the point. I think you do it right. You do it. You have balance. Not to parent shame you or anything, but you guys are also you're a childless couple. It's wonderful.
The older I get without kids, the more I'm doping.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I can still sleep 8 hours a night if I want to.
Yeah.
Well, except I'm old, so I wake up at 5:30. But
keep that going for as long as it feels good. Not that you're asking for parenting advice, but I love my kid, but I also... Are you a parent, Adam? I hadn't heard. Yeah. We were trying to figure out if Flynn should get his own Instagram, but I think that's pretentious and not something we're going to do. But no, I think I still appreciate... I always try and obviously I know I'm enjoying being a dad, and I'm gushing about it all the time, but when I'm talking to my childless friends, I'm also very much like, hey, my life was really good before I had a kid. I didn't need to do this. So I never want to put that kind of pressure on, oh, look at how great my life is. You don't have a kid? You must not be as fulfilled as me. No, no, I don't think that's it. Your childless life still looks pretty good to me. So yeah, enjoy it. No resentment from me about your childless life.
Good. I mean, you've made choices. It would be very weird to resent me for the choices you made.
Well, that does not stop people, does it?
That's true.
Well, and so then how at some point there's this intersection of video game making and programming basically, and data and your analytical reasoning capabilities and bike racing, and lo and behold, Cross Results is born. And I want to preface that by asking, even before this, were you aware of uscrossrankings.com?
I mean, no, I am now.
Oh, you are now. Okay. You've heard
when I bought crossresults.com. No, I didn't know anything about US cross rankings. I mean, I have since been informed though.
Okay. I didn't know if you'd ever talked about it. Yeah. It's no new ideas under the sun, but we did US cross rankings basically because, as usual, we were at that point trying to shame USA Cycling into doing something that we thought they should.
I mean, that's the same origin story as Cross Results, so that's perfect.
Yeah. Well, you just did a much
but mine
better
worked
job.
because they copied.
So has that story really been publicly told? I feel like you've probably blogged about it.
I mean, I always say it anytime someone interviews me about how Cross Results starts. I say that like in the fall of 2006, I had done enough Cat 4 races to get a Cat 3 upgrade. So I logged on to USA Cycling to request an upgrade. And there was a link to my race history. And I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot. It's 2006. Everything's on the internet. I'm going to click this link, and it's going to show me all the races I did this fall. It's going to be sweet. And I clicked the link, and it was like 2 races.
Because organizers weren't submitting their...
No one was posting results.
Right.
So I was like, wait a minute. But the races are on Bike Reg. I've seen the results of every race on the internet. You know, it's out there.
Right.
So there's something that hasn't been done, which is a database of cyclocross race results. And I was like, well... It was like the right time in my life where I still had this. My body, my brain were still used to working 70-hour weeks, but I was working a job where I was now working like 40 hours a week. So I was like, what do I do with this free time? And I was like, well, I program things for fun in my free time, and now I don't make video games because it turns out that wasn't fun. So I started making like a results website, and it totally just snowballed from there. Here we are.
Yeah.
But it only exists if I had clicked that link and seen all my race results, then I would have been like, oh, this problem's been solved by USA Cycling.
Well,
there's no opening in the market for this database. I have no desire to make it. And
even if all your race results were there was no ranking system. And I don't know if you remember the days of like first come, first serve staging and people putting their trainers on the start line, even at nationals.
I don't remember that. I've heard about it.
The last year that I remember it happening was Portland. And basically there was some kind of ranking, and I don't know if it was UCI points or what we did, but like I feel like a few people got staged based on like previous year's nationals results. And then after that, it was first come, first serve. Yeah. And so people would put they would get there as soon as they possibly could with their trainers and put their trainers on the start line and warm up on trainers in the staging area so that they could stake out their staging spot. So you've saved us from some really hard to imagine behaviors.
I feel like when I got into cross, that problem had just been solved. And the way it was solved was order of reg.
That's right.
I remember the race to register to get a decent start position in the B race.
And it's funny because there was a lousy way to stage a race, but it was really good for race organizers. Fields
it was
filled.
Just having and just having any algorithm other than first come first serve means you can like do an organized call up.
Yeah.
And you don't have people lining up half an hour early.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was better, but then the whole idea of staging by ranking. I can't take credit for that. That was Minuteman Road Club. I started, so I had the Cross Results thing going. I started doing some rankings based off of how international Nordic skiing rankings work, because that's what I was familiar with. And I was like, oh, maybe I can translate this to bike racing. And the rankings were like, they weren't bad. So the Minuteman guys said, could we line people up by your rankings? And I said, that's kind of crazy because this is just some junk I made up. And this was like 2008. Most people, I don't think, really knew much about Cross Results or cared. But I was like, sure, if you guys want to, we'll do it. So I like helped them out. And basically they sent me a spreadsheet. I sent it back with the ranking points. And then that's how the staging got started.
And what race did they do that at?
There was do you remember the old race in Rentham they used to put on?
No, I don't.
Yeah, it was. I think the year we did it was yeah. You were probably off being pro.
Yeah.
I want to say it was 2008. We raced in December. It rained a lot. I remember by the 1-2-3 race, it was like 38 and raining, and they had completely given up on staging by call-ups anyway.
Yeah.
But I guess it worked out to some degree.
Yeah.
It was an old venue. It was kind of near where we did Ice Weasels, but yeah, maybe you probably never raced there.
No, it doesn't. I don't remember. It doesn't ring a bell. And also we started having, of course, series rankings, and we were staging in New England. We were staging by New England Point Series.
Because for a long time, the way to break into if you could just get 15th,
that's right,
you get one Verge point.
Yeah.
And then you get called up off Verge points and not your order of reg.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and so I remember that was such a huge deal to get 15th in Bs.
And that's why sometimes I would change and this is even before me, this is like when Tom Stevens was still running the series. Like, So this is pre-2000. I would say late 90s, we were still staging people by what was then called the New England Point Series. And previous to that too, every race in New England was included in the New England Point Series. And so, yeah, if you raced a lot, you would get points and you'd get staged by those points. So that was at least how we were doing it in New England. Of course, that was a bummer if you showed up for one of the things that using rankings like yours helps is if someone comes from out of town to compete in your series and deserves to be up at the front of the group, you can stage them at the front of the group. It doesn't matter what their result is.
Right. It's not cumulative. Like racing more doesn't necessarily help you.
Right.
So it doesn't take we don't need many data points to get a handle on how fast you are and stage you correctly.
It's part of why I abandoned staging a lot of my categories by series points, even in the series, like the non-UCI categories, because I'd have a junior come from Canada who was like Canadian national champion. And
he lines up behind every single kid that ever got a point.
It's the dumbest thing I ever saw, and it was my fault. I was like, I have to change this, and so it felt funny to devalue my own series standings, but it was the only fair thing to do, really.
Right. It's a trade-off between like fairness and making the series important.
Yeah. And so it's interesting. So now you've just done some rankings. Obviously, Cross National started today, or maybe not obviously, but if you're listening to this now, it's we're recording this on a Wednesday after the first day of championship races at Nationals. My Masters race is tomorrow.
So by the time this is on the internet, you will have either defended or not defended your title.
It depends on how quickly the staff over at Wide Angle Podium process this and get it up. It might be live before my race. We'll see, but sometime the same day as my race. More importantly, today is my wedding anniversary, Colin. So instead of spending my fourth wedding anniversary with my wife, I'm on Skype with you.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
Yeah,
I mean, it's been 4 years. Like,
I mean, how many more times will it be interesting? Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
my wife is like out having dinner, and I was like, yeah, I have to go home and record a podcast. She was like, all right, have fun.
Night off with the girls.
Right.
Well, and so it's interesting because you're, of course, Cross Nationals isn't on Bike Reg, and so the race predictor is not pulling from a Bike Reg pre-registration list. You had to do some
paste
work.
all that crap into Excel and look it up. It takes me a while.
Well, but also, of course, what's funny and where we haven't closed the loop here, and it's a story you've told many times before, but of course, USA Cycling now has a ranking system. They have a ranking system because, of course, Steve Johnson tried to hire you and bring cross results with you, and in the end, Steve Roscoe and Ross Krauss at Bike Reg won that bidding war for Colin Reuter's
the highly competitive bidding
Reuter's programming prowess and his cross results brand, and of course when USA Cycling, in particular, when Steve Johnson was not able to lure you over to the evil empire, they of course just
they copied it.
Yeah,
they told me as much, right? They're basically like we're gonna buy cross results or we're gonna make it. And I was like, okay, this is how much I think it's worth. And they were like, well, we think it's worth a lot less. And I was like, that's kind of what I expected. And then I asked Bike Reg what they thought, and they were like, we think it's worth about the same. So then I basically interviewed with both places and was like, which of these would be better to work at? And you won't believe it, but Bike Reg seemed to be like a better environment than USA Cycling. But that was the old days. So Derek, if you're listening, you seem way cooler than Steve Johnson. Things may have gone different if we had this conversation again.
I bet if you were doing that interview with Derek, he would have got you out there. I think also it depends on you're choosing between Northampton and Colorado Springs, and for me that's an easy choice. But I think you probably like the Mountain West.
Yeah, I like to visit it. It's hard to know if I'd want to live there.
I mean, do you want to live in the most liberal, probably the most, if not one of the most liberal college towns, small cities in America, i.e. Northampton, or do you want
the most conservative town on the Front Range,
and possibly in the country too, in terms of like all the things that are headquartered there, like Focus on the Family and all the right-wing conservative activist groups.
My reasoning wasn't like that complicated.
Yeah.
I don't. But I mean, really, if I had to break it down, it was like, I went to Colorado Springs and I met with a bunch of people there, and I think the real issue was that I talked to a bunch of guys that were working IT there that, as far as I could tell, were like just playing out the string, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like they seemed really like they didn't race bikes, they didn't care about bikes, and I didn't connect with them at all. And I was like, I don't want these guys to be my coworkers.
Yep.
You know, and like I talked to Bike Reg and I was like, you guys are bike racers that do website stuff. Like, you feel like my people. So
yeah, they needed a programmer who raced bikes because they were bike racers who were trying to program. You know what I mean?
Don't say that about Steve.
Listen,
he's a very good programmer. I just don't let him write code anymore.
I mean, you got to remember, Steve, Bike Reg was just born in the other bedroom adjacent to mine in college,
right.
You know? So I watched all that programming happen.
Yeah, you didn't know that Steve was a self-taught programmer, because
of course I did.
Oh, maybe
I was living with him at the time.
Okay.
Yeah, he and Jamie Fisher. I watched them. Jamie, I think, had more proper programming training. We're getting a little off track here, but their first project was like a point of sale system for the calzone delivery place that they were working at when they were racing bikes. They were like, we can improve this whole.
Right.
Like,
well, it was, in the 90s, like, doing things on the internet was cutting edge, Yeah. It didn't matter what it was or how good you did it. Like, just if you could do it, you were probably the first person to do it. Yeah, so there was like a lot of market opportunity.
Well, ask Steve the next time you talk about Echelon Information Systems.
Okay.
That was the name of their first programming project in business. And then Bike Reg was the next one. And of course, the first event,
one of those is still around.
Yeah, right. Well, true. And of course, the very first event on Bike Reg is Tour of the Hilltowns, the race that I was organizing for the Northampton Cycling Club with John Fry and JD. And so those connections go real, real deep. And so, now I'm in Boston and you're in Northampton. We made that swap, didn't have any real overlap out in Northampton, but yeah, of course. Northampton is a wonderful place to live. And if you can find a job there, that's the trick, right? That's the hard part.
Isn't it always?
Yeah. Most people can't. But you're right that the jobs are in Boston, which is how I ended up in Boston and not Northampton. So,
right.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, you know that when I got the job with Bike Reg, I lived in Boston, and I basically told them, I live in Boston, I'm not going to move, so I'm going to work remote most of the time.
And then there was a girl.
I went out to my first day at Northampton, or my first day in Northampton to like work at Bike Reg, and I had been talking to this girl on the internet who coincidentally lived in Northampton, and I was like, oh hey, maybe after work we can meet up and hang out. Yeah, the rest is history. Turns out my second day at work was also in the Bike Reg office because I had spent the night in Northampton. And then I think my third day was also there.
That is more info about Kristen that you should probably be revealing.
Just because I had a place to sleep doesn't mean anything else. Wow. I'm just saying that we got along well enough that I didn't need to stay with my friends that I had told I would stay with. And now we're married, and it's been like 6 years. So it worked out.
That is actually a great first date story.
See?
Yeah. And of course, we're all fond of Kristen. So.
Yeah, she's a very nice person.
So let's bring that back around to race predictions for nationals.
You're gonna win.
Well, I'm a little bummed to find out that there's no article for the Masters. I saw the predictions, and I saw that there was going to be a series of articles, and I was like, oh, I wonder when the Masters article is going to come
it's funny. So CX Mag said, hey, do you want to write predictions for the races that people care about? It takes a really long, people do care about the 45 plus race. Watching you win the 45 plus race last year was one of the highlights of going. I'm not even lying. Like, I really did like that. I was excited to see you win because it was close enough that it was in doubt. It wasn't just like, oh, let's watch Adam win. He thinks he's so great. Look at him win. I was like, Adam might win this, but he also might not, especially if these lap riders keep getting in the way.
Oh my God. Stresses me out just thinking about it again. Right
exactly.
Now.
And obviously I had already raced. I had like 3 beers. So it was pretty good for me too.
Thank you.
So that was a good win. But yeah, so it takes a long time to do the research.
That article, it was I read the under 23 article. I was like, this is way more in depth than I was expecting.
It's funny because I'm like, all I will do is use my own website and I will like run the head-to-head comparison and like look at some numbers. It's pretty easy. And it seems easy. And then I'm like, that took 2.5 hours.
Uh-huh.
So I wrote 4 articles. So 2.5 times 4, that's like 10 hours of of race prediction. Yeah, it got out of hand.
I read that article and I was like, he spent some time on this. It was long to read, so I knew it was long to write.
The worst thing is when you like think you think you've got your like angle on a guy, and then you go back to like check the data one more time, and you're like, oh, that's not accurate at all. Like there was times I had to like rewrite my whole prediction on someone when I went to like I was like, oh, this dude is like so and so beats Becca Fahringer all the time. Their record's like 6-3. It's totally conclusive. Then I look and I'm like, oh, you read that wrong. It's 3-6.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, delete, start over.
Yeah. Well,
right. So
I'm gonna win. That's
so you're gonna win. I mean, that's what matters here.
Good, thank you.
You're not gonna win because there's like cross is random.
Yeah, there's a bike race to do.
People act like doing one trial is conclusive.
Mm-hmm.
You make a prediction that like Hyde's gonna beat Ortenblad, and then you roll the dice once, and something happens, and either you predicted the dice correctly or not.
Well, look at what happened to Al. Like Al did the non-championship. Al Donahue did the non-championship 40-plus race on Tuesday.
I guess he rolled the tubular.
He was completely in control of the race. He like let other guys lead, and then when the group split, he took charge of the group and dumped the other guy. And the key is more or less right now to be first to the off-camber. If you can lead for that off-camber section and exit the off-camber with a lead and any kind of gas left, it will be very hard for someone to beat you between there and if not impossible, but hard.
You can control your own destiny.
Yeah. You got to go all in, and then you'll probably get to the last corner first, and then it's very easy to control the last corner, and then someone could come around you. But anyway, if you can lead up the hill on the last lap and exit the off-camber leading, you're going to win. And Al did that. He not only led into it, he had the guy he was with under pressure and was rolling away from him, and then his tire came off.
I mean, I don't want to throw any shade, but I want to point out that keeping your tire attached is a controlled factor.
Well, you gotta sort of. Normally that would be true, but when you're in Al's position and running Jam Fund and it's a team
right, who glued that tire?
Exactly.
I blame Scott Smith.
Well, so what happens is at that point it's nationals and there's a team full of juniors and under 23s and new people, and the kids do a lot of their own work. They're responsible for stuff. Al just puts all the wheels in the van. There's a bunch of kids who didn't do nationals. He pulls a wheel out that he thinks is good because he thinks he knows who glued it. And I'm not going to out anybody, but that, of course, he knows who glued it. And he was, if Al was mad about anything, it was that he didn't check it himself to be sure.
They should have to write their names on every tire they glue so he can judge.
Yeah, so that's basically. Al's very busy and he worries about himself last, and that's essentially what happened there. Al was not concerned about the equipment for his own sake.
Yes, but if Adam Myerson rolls a tubular in the championship race, that will be Adam Myerson's fault.
Baby goes to sleep, wife goes to sleep. I go to the basement to glue tires, 100%. So, yeah. Those are all me. But the course has a lot of treachery on it. There are lots of places to make mistakes. It's actually a much more interesting course than it appears to be. it looks a little plain, and then when you ride it, you realize there's a lot going on, and there are a lot of places to not just. I thought it was all going to be really just pedaling and only one technical section, but there are just a lot of places to crash, and there are a lot of places to pedal, but there are a lot of places to fall down. So,
I mean, that's how it should be, right?
Yeah. It's a very fair, interesting course. It might not be as like I would call the Austin course and Asheville and even Hartford were very visually dramatic. You could see how crazy it was. And this course only has one section like that. That's the off camber. And so you don't realize how good of a race you can have on it until you actually ride it. So that's probably it's not criticism, but my observation. It doesn't look like much. It turns out to be just as good as any other course we've had in recent years.
All right, so here, I want your opinion on this because I haven't seen the course. I feel like both elite races have a rider who has a real good chance if they can not get dropped. And, not getting dropped basically comes down to a function of how consistently hard the course is, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't drop Tobin in 1 minute, you drop him in half an hour, So if he can get in the draft and recover and just cling for 50 minutes, he's got a chance. And there's courses where you can pull that off, if we're racing Northampton, if it was Hyde versus Ortenblad at Northampton, I would feel much better about Tobin's chances than Tobin versus Steven in Europe.
Yeah. Well, This course today, as I was riding, I was like, this feels like a version of Northampton.
Right. Is it hard enough that you can just get rid of a guy by just going hard?
Nope. Absolutely not. The groups will split. There will be people who can't hold the wheel, but there are you can get gaps in turns, but there's plenty of places to pedal the gaps back if you're strong. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the thing. You can fix mistakes with pedaling here. But if you're good at turning and driving and changing your speed, you absolutely can follow a wheel. And it's only going to get drier and faster as the week goes on. And I think the more that happens, the more it favors Tobin being able to follow Hyde.
Right. And I mean, no matter what the conditions are, Hyde's the favorite. The real question though is how much of a favorite should he be?
Yeah. No, I think
there's no course in the country where I would pick Tobin, but there's certainly courses where I could see Tobin.
So if Tobin is at his best and Hyde is at his best, Hyde will be hard pressed to dump Tobin.
Right. I remember watching Hyde try to dump Tobin at KMC and he couldn't do it. And I was really impressed.
Right. So that's what I'm expecting. Looks like Tobin's been training, and I think he's been motor pacing, and motor pacing is the right training for this. But I also think 4,500 feet is enough to matter. And
yeah, that's what I've been hearing.
Neither of them have been at altitude. So at least that is even for them there. I don't think Kerry Warner is necessarily. He's been home. He hasn't been at altitude.
Yeah, I was going to say we're definitely disrespecting Kerry by just talking about Hyde and Ortenblad.
Well, I think Kerry is capable of riding with those guys, but I think when it comes time to win the race,
exactly,
those guys have a level for that last lap all-in maneuver. I don't think it's quite hard enough for Kerry to shine.
Right. I would say Hyde's the best at everything until the sprint. And then Tobin's the best. Kerry doesn't have anything he's the best at. So even if he's there, it's how does he win the race?
Well, and so this is why I think the women's race is going to be interesting too, because if Katie Compton just goes to the front and grinds, people are only the other riders who are strong are only going to get dropped through mistakes. That's where the separations are going to happen from mistakes, not from someone being strong or making an attack. It's going to be mistakes and then taking advantage of exploiting mistakes. So,
yeah, I actually think the women's race is going to be really interesting because Katie Compton is such a notoriously bad sprinter that she really can't leave it to the end. Hyde, I feel like Hyde could have Tobin on the ropes, come off the last corner with 2 seconds and win the race.
I think at most you can come around one person out of the last corner.
He doesn't have to win. He just has to. If he makes the last lap super hard, You know, he doesn't have to break Tobin. He just has to go into the straightaway with like a little gap, and it's over.
Take a sprint away, basically.
And like Katie, I don't think Katie can do that. You know, like if Ellen's anywhere near Katie on the last lap, you're like, I think I might be picking Ellen.
I also think that the last,
and the women's race is shorter too.
Yeah, true. And I think the last off-camber technical section will actually favor Ellen the most. I think Ellen will be the best on that part of the course. It's treacherous. It doesn't feel like a place that you can rail and go faster. It does feel like a place where if you try to go too fast, you might crash. That's really what it's about. So yeah. But no, I think I'm looking forward to the rest of those articles. I'm sad that there isn't a Masters one. I was looking forward to that too. So,
well, you know, I ran the race predictor, and second place is Matt O'Keefe, who you are intimately familiar with.
Yeah, it was good to see.
Good old Matty O from the North Shore.
Because it's hard to know, like, you know, the guy who was second last year at Nationals in my race, he was coming from Boulder and is going to have the advantage of altitude, but you just don't know how. You don't race against the other Masters from the other regions. Right. You don't, and I don't race Masters races. I race elite races, except at Nationals.
And you know, like using cross results points to compare, like you're racing UCI in New England, which is honestly harder and going to be worse for your points than racing Masters in Colorado. Like the points aren't perfect, you know. So when you're like, oh, I'm 6 points better than this guy, not 13 points, and like I can tell something from this, like that, you know, that's not how it works, right? So all we can really do is give you a list of like, you know, the top 6 guys, and then from there. You don't know anything till the race starts. So
right, and so Al rolling, bringing that back around to Al rolling his tire, it was good for me to. I was standing there when he rolled his tire. I wanted to watch, you know, what Al was doing and see what I could learn from him. And you know, when he rolled his tire, first of all, he handled it so well. He just laughed it off, and because what can you do, right? And I think if there was a jersey on the line, maybe it would have been.
He might have been, yeah. I mean, it's the 25-minute non-championship race.
Right. But it was a good reminder, like anything can happen, you know, and you have to be prepared for, like at Gloucester when I lost all the spokes in my front wheel in the first 30 seconds of the race. Like,
oh, I remember that. That was great.
Yeah, your whole season. It happens to every top-level athlete where they have some disaster that keeps them from finishing an event that they've built months of training around, and like maybe their job even revolves around having a good performance at a particular event, you know, at the professional level, and you break a wheel or a spoke or you roll a tire, and that's it. That's sports.
Stuff just happens, and you gotta laugh about it.
You have to laugh about it.
Because you're gonna cry otherwise.
Well, so here's the problem, right? Like you were talking about winning nationals last year, and you know, there was a very unique kind of pressure on me at that race because I had skipped many years of racing Masters because I was still a pro, and I'd had a year off from being a pro, and I felt like it was appropriate to start racing Masters. I was 45. I had a kid. Like, I'm a master. And
dude, you're old.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you know, I just I felt like I needed the title. I needed not just to win that race, but what I wanted was to be a national champion, not just to win that race and get the jersey for a year, but to have a status achieved, so that I could like get the chip off my shoulder. And so I was very nervous, very worked up, very anxious. I wouldn't let Janice come to the race until after I was already racing. Like,
oh wow,
yeah. I was like, don't show up until after the race has started. Like, I didn't want to see her before the start, or Flynn, because I'm so obsessed with my family.
Yeah, I could see that actually.
That I like. Yeah,
I do dumb stuff. Like I miss my warm up sometimes because I'm watching Kristen race.
That's exactly. If his diaper needed to get changed, I would have wanted to change his diaper when I needed to go warm up, stuff like that. So I was like, I just need you to stay away until I'm on the start line. That's how freaked out I was, and then to be catching all those lap riders at the end and have them impeding my progress when my gap was narrowing was.
No, I could hear the panic in your voice from like across the field.
I was screeching.
Hearing you yell at those guys. Yeah, I would have been too.
Yeah. It was life or death. I was screeching at them, and I couldn't because it was slipping through my hands because of it.
Screeching is the right word.
Yeah, absolutely. I was
pretty tense.
Yeah, totally. So to get around the last corner and be able to look behind me, and you can see in those photos, I was like part of that like roar of whatever was it wasn't just because I won. It was because I had just survived all those lapped riders. I had just it wasn't about the 44 minutes. It was like the last minute. And getting through that and actually still holding on to it was like so much relief and excitement. So this year, as the favorite, like, I'd kind of told Janice I was like, okay, goal achieved. Now I can relax. And as it turns out, the jersey is the one ring. And having worn it all year, I want to keep it. And I don't want to let it go, and I don't want to lose, and I actually care. And it's driving me a little bit crazy. I'm super anxious.
Keeping it is probably more stressful and less rewarding than getting it.
That's exactly it. It does not feel as like joyful. It feels like someone's trying to steal my thing.
Right. Like, cause you had tried to win nationals before and it didn't work. I remember in Madison when you were racing 40 plus.
Yeah. Cause the
course was like a tractor pull and some dudes from Colorado just made more power.
Sort of, yeah. I mean, that's a good enough version of it.
That was my memory as a spectator.
It was Pete Weber and Brandon Dwight, and the three of us just rode away from everybody on lap 1. And then as we entered the icy rutted section after the start finish on lap 2, I got stuck in a rut and it sent me off course. Like I screwed up actually. In a section where I had been flying all day, they kind of attacked me going into the section, which was fine. I wanted them to lead. I was ready to start following them. But then I made a huge error and got gapped, and then panicked and tried to chase back up to them from that gap. And I had overdressed, and I came apart. I really blew it. And so I rode around by myself for the rest of the race in third, but the two of them swapped off and I never saw them again. In the elite race 2 days later, I got like 19th or 20th, and those guys got lapped. So,
who's counting?
Yeah, well, there was no jersey for that.
Right.
But yeah, and so that one, I don't know. I wasn't as emotionally attached to that one because I was going back to being a pro the next day. It was
I guess I'm just saying that, like, it's one thing, like, you had already tried to win nationals and not won nationals. So last year, had you not won nationals, it would have been a bummer, but also like, like you knew it was possible, right? Now it's like, now you can't win nationals. You can only lose nationals.
Yeah. It doesn't,
which is it's a different feeling.
Yeah.
I hate racing when I think I can win and I want to win. Like,
yeah.
It's a whole different approach. I've never done well.
It doesn't taste good. Win. Yeah, no, it's a different flavor, and it's not last year felt real good. It tasted good, and this year I gotta say it does not feel the same, and I'm not enjoying the pressure in the same way, and I honestly I don't think it will be as satisfying if I win as last year would be. Though how could it be? I suppose, but
you're supposed to win, right?
Yeah. No, it's my race to lose, and I'll be happy when I win, but I don't know.
When I win, I love it.
Did I just say that?
You just said I'll be happy when I win.
Oh well,
you'll be happy if you win.
Yeah, I prefer it if I had said that. I apologize. That's disrespectful.
Right.
That's not what I meant to say. Thanks for calling me on that.
I mean, there's a lot of good guys in that race.
There is, and there were a lot of good guys last year, and I don't know. I don't have a
last year was super technical, and you barely won. This year is not going to be super technical in the same way.
Well, I'm going to get to follow wheels though this year. I'm going to actually employ tactics this year. So those are the tricks up my sleeve that I didn't get to use last year. Last year I just pedaled and raced myself.
Or don't pedal more.
Sure. Well, the key is that this year I'm actually probably going to race other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also good at that, right? Like that's tactics. I'm good at tactics. And
Allegedly.
Yeah.
Yeah. They should have read a blog post when you beat a guy in a sprint.
Mocking him.
Yeah.
Mocking him.
It wasn't mocking him. You were just coaching.
So maybe we can wrap it up there. And I think I really would like to have you back, Colin, because I think we have so many other things to talk about and not, I want to talk about Nationals tonight because it's timely and I wanted to get your origin story. But, I'd like to get you back as a regular guest periodically, almost to serve as a co-host. I'd like to just jam on some stuff with you that when things are bothering me about bike racing and I want to process, I'd love to have you back.
Adam's therapy session. That's
right. Well, let's save cycling on my podcast together. I think that would be good. I want to talk about women's racing and there's just so many. You and I are not you and I are involved in helping make bike racing better, locally, regionally, nationally. It is essentially our jobs to be involved in bike racing. And so,
True.
And again, as I said at the outset, I appreciate your perspective so much. I think other people appreciate it as well. And I think people will enjoy hearing us hash something out, like just go through the steps of a proof and get to the logical conclusion together and see if we can save cycling in the process. I think that would be enjoyable.
Well, I mean, I love to listen to both myself and you talk. So
it's a match made in heaven.
If you want to record a podcast more than once every 6 months, I could be on it.
Yeah, but that's true. That would be good.
That's more on you than me, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll keep reaching out. I mean, we obviously put a lot of advanced planning into recording this episode. I texted you a couple hours ago and asked if you were free. So,
Yeah, I had 3 hours advance warning, which was enough time to research Prince, which you forgot to ask me about.
I did not forget. You just actually stole my lead in as you started.
That was your closing.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this
question.
is perfect. We're going to lead right in with, yes, I gave you enough time to think about your favorite Prince song, which is,
right.
Of course, the perfect way to end. So tell us about, are you a Prince fan? Was that an easy thing for you to figure out?
No, I don't know if you know this. I am 10 years younger than you. So like half of Prince's work happened before I was old enough to really listen to music.
You're wrong about that, and it tells us a lot about how much of a Prince fan you are, because there has been Prince music being released the entire time you've been a music listener, but you would have to be an actual Prince fan.
At what age do you think I became a music listener?
As nerdy as you are, I would say probably not until high school, and it's when you discovered electronic music.
Right. So I entered high school in 1996. How much of Prince's music do you think was made after 1996?
At least one record a year.
Look, I didn't say there was no Prince in my lifetime. I just said like over half of it was predated me. In any case,
hey, how about we look at the data for that?
If Prince discography results.com.
Yeah, I mean that exists already.
Yeah, it's called Wikipedia, I believe. But I have a strict no web browser rule during this podcast, so we'll never know.
It's a good rule. Well, so tell us what your favorite Prince song conclusion was.
So obviously, like you told me, I had to figure out my favorite Prince song, and I realized that I only know like one Prince song. But I went on YouTube and I looked at Prince's top 10 hits, and sure enough, he had a hit that I had forgotten was by him. And I genuinely like the song "Kiss" the most, so that's what I'm going with.
I think you're not the first one to choose Kiss in our past guests.
It's kind of disco-y, and like I'll admit it, I probably most recently heard it at a wedding, but it was still very enjoyable to me.
And did you
stick with it?
You didn't realize it was his because Tom Jones did it?
I had probably only heard it at weddings. It wasn't like I ever.
Right? It's Tom Jones who did it. Who did?
Shit, man, I don't know.
Who's the horrible lounge guy who did Kiss and had a hit with it? It's Tom Jones.
I mean, this is with the web browser problem. I can't open Chrome. Can't tell you. It was just didn't know that was by Prince. Did like it. Would listen to it again.
It's Tom Jones.
Therefore, Prince song.
I'll take it. So one of the things that I try to emphasize for people with this question is I accept all answers. There's no wrong answer. Well, I'm not here to judge people on how big of a fan they are of Prince. I'm actually curious to know, because Prince truly, everybody has a favorite Prince song. Prince has impacted even the casual listener in some way. Even people who don't actually say, well, I don't really like Prince or don't realize I like Prince. They still actually have a Prince song they like. He's put out so much music, and you have a memory. You probably have a memory associated with a Prince song, maybe because of a video or something like that.
Well, I mean, while YouTube was playing for me the top 10 Prince songs of all time, I had heard all of them and could not have identified most of them as Prince. So you're right, he's impacted me. I just didn't even know it until tonight, and I thank you for that.
Yeah, well, you can thank Prince for that. Well, thanks for coming on short notice. We will definitely start doing this on a regular basis because, frankly, I'd rather talk to you than to myself. I'm not ready for the Rush Limbaugh style monologue show. I'd rather have you be the counter.
We at least need to create the illusion that you're not talking to yourself.
Exactly. But thanks for coming on, and thanks for everything you do for the sport. Thanks for the in-depth articles on nationals, and especially the attention that you're paying to the women in those articles. It was you're clearly paying as much attention to the women's races as you are to the men's races, and I think people appreciate that.
The women's races they're just as good these days, and they're harder to call.
Yeah,
so
we need a podcast about that.
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't. I got to get my brief women's prognostication in, and Compton's gonna win. Sorry guys. And yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't write an article about you, but it was fun to talk about whatever we just talked about.
Yeah.
So good luck tomorrow.
Thanks, bud. All right. Well,
don't Vanderpool it. When I'm watching live results, I want it to be in doubt. Like I want to be like frantically refreshing Twitter, trying to find out if Myerson won.
That's funny because when you said don't Vanderpool it, what I pictured is when he has his come aparts.
Oh well, right.
When he's the favorite and then he has a come apart. That's what I thought you were saying.
Definitely have a huge first lap crash that would set anyone else like too far back to win, and then do come back to the front and win easily because you're Vanderpool.
Perfect. I mean, that would be interesting.
Yeah, but no, please leave it in doubt to the last lap so that I'll be excited.
I'll do my best.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Thanks, bud.
All right, man. Have a good night.
Yeah, you too.